I wanted to find a kind of like meaning, and I didn't sleep for weeks. I tried sleeping tablets, I couldn't sleep. I did some weird things, and it wasn't my fault. I also originally started seeing clowns. Welcome to the first episode of the Living with Positivity podcast. Today I'm talking to Daniel Jones. We're talking about how he recovered from psychosis to positivity. Let's get into it. So, Dan, hello. Glad you could have me. We're talking about psychosis today. So for anyone that doesn't know, can you describe what actually is psychosis? Psychosis basically is seeing things, like hallucinating and hearing things and talking to your own voice in your own mind, and basically not being in touch with reality. And it's such a horrible thing to face. So you actually wrote a book during your time at a hospital with psychosis. What was going through your mind when you decided to actually write a book? I actually found it quite difficult after coming out of psychosis and I wanted to find a kind of like meaning in life, and I was struggling. I was having all these thoughts, and I realised that I need to do something in this hospital. I need to do something that will keep me busy, but also keep me motivated and give me a reason to exist, really. And so I thought, why not write a book? And so I decided to write Living with Asperger's, Daniel's story. And I wrote about 3/4 of it before coming out of hospital, and then I continued it. Then I had it on my desktop a year later, and I thought, I've got to do something with this. I've got to release this as a book. And so I released it on Amazon. And did that idea of writing a book give you a sense of like purpose in hospital? Yeah, of course, it gave me such a sense of purpose, being able to write a book in hospital and have something to do, really. You must have been stable to have written the book. What things did you experience in hospital and before hospital, during your psychotic episode? Well, inside and outside hospital, I experienced several different things. I started talking to my voice initially in my head, and like talking to him in my sleep, and I didn't sleep for weeks. I tried sleeping tablets, I couldn't sleep, and then I started doing different things, like I did mindfulness. I was stuck in mindfulness, and the police had to be called in bed, and my sister was saying, this is a waste of police time, get up, Daniel, get up. And then in hospital I actually hit somebody with a bin lid, and I did some weird things, and it wasn't my fault. I also originally started seeing clowns and hallucination of killer clowns, which was frightening and scary, and really it was such a scary time for me as a person. And you say to me before we started recording that you had anxiety while watching TV. How did you overcome this anxiety after going through psychosis? And after going through psychosis, wasn't it hard to actually overcome this anxiety that you got whilst watching TV? Well, TV was incredibly hard to overcome, really. I had to do CBT therapy, and I found myself stuck in a rhythm of having to go to sleep to try and cope, because I was experiencing this anxiety while she's at screens, really, like watching TV and using my Mac and laptop. It really was a difficult time, but I found that if I broke that rhythm and slowly broke it, I could get back into things, and I have become, and I do watch TV now, and I've challenged this, and I've wanted to become much more positive person as a result. And there must have been certain triggers that triggered you during your psychotic episode, well, after your psychotic episode, sort of say. So how did you cope with them triggers? Coping with them triggers, them anxiety triggers, was quite difficult, but I managed to realise that once I do go through one trigger, I can go through another and become more confident in a way, and ultimately these triggers don't become triggers anymore. And so I realised that. And so by doing this, I become more confident as a person in life, and I found that my psychosis didn't take over my life as a person. And I see that you're trying to get into employment and that. So what do you plan to do in terms of employment, and how is it? What has your been experience since having psychosis and finding employment? Well, obviously, I do my Living with Dan blog. I'm also looking into doing social media and marketing and digital marketing, much more with different companies like my designwithdan.co.uk website. And I also, so they're my main employability factors. And I realised that after coming from psychosis that I don't need to do the same. I can be different, and it's okay to not be okay. That's the end of our first podcast, our Living with Positivity podcast. Thank you for joining me, Dan, and thank you. And look forward to our next podcast next week on our Living with Positivity podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more on the Living with Positivity podcast.